Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to podcast, and it is episode number 6. All
Number
right,
6.
we are the Houston and Sean podcast coming at you. So today, because today is the Super Bowl, Houston. So today, of course, we're gonna talk about traveling, world traveling.
Oh
Sorry,
man, I thought
guys.
you were going to say the Super Bowl.
No,
Can I just say one thing about the Super Bowl?
yeah.
I think that the Super Bowl game tonight is going to have a lot of touchdowns in it.
Yeah.
And I think
yeah.
there's going to be a halftime and nobody's going to score during the halftime portion.
Well, of course, there's going to be an MVP tonight, right?
Yes.
But I'm
someone is either going to lose this game or win this game tonight.
But I'm more like the rapper 50 Cent. I'm not an MVP. I'm a PIMP.
Yes, Sean,
And
you are a PIMP.
I don't have to win anything. That's just a lifelong title.
Yes, it is.
Mother beeping PIMP. Anyway, so traveling. All right. So we have been on many adventures together. But probably let's start with your adventure in Italy. I want to hear about that.
Oh, Italy. Well, I went with my good friend Meredith, and it was my high school graduation vacation. My friend Meredith and I went, and some other people, my family, and some members of their family or whatever. And it was the first time I could legally drink anywhere at the age of 19. And so I just remember Meredith and I just getting drunk and just having the greatest time. And one night we were staying in this hotel. I don't know if I should tell this story, but I'm going to tell it anyway. And on the third floor, they left the bar open. There was a bar up there, but they'd leave it open all night, and you could go in and they'd serve you drinks, and then they'd let you stay after everyone leaves, so you could be in this bar just with your friends. And Meredith and I ended up throwing a bunch of plates out of the window because we were drunk. And I think that was my story. That's my total summation of going to Italy.
Did the plates hit anybody?
No, nobody got, no, but we were very drunk and So, but Italy was
people on the streets below were like, excuse me.
There was nobody there. It was 3 a.m, I think. But
so
Italy was beautiful.
were you guys yeah, you shouldn't get too drunk in Sicily. You might end up in the water.
Yeah.
No, it's not Sicily. That's Venice. I've never been to
one of
Italy.
them places.
You want to know an embarrassing story of Italy for me?
What's that?
Is I was in college, and my uncle was talking about his trip to Italy, and I was like, "Oh, did you also go to Rome?" I made it pretty apparent that I had no idea that Rome was a part of Italy. That's pretty sad.
Hey, I still make those kinds of mistakes. I'm not a geography guy.
But the thing is that he's a Harvard doctor, a very smart man, and it was horrible, to sort of admit that it was unbeknownst at the college age where and he was paying for my college a little bit, to send me to college, and I had forgotten to learn that Rome was a part of Italy.
Oh, great. Good to see what you're doing with your tuition money, Sean.
I'm pretty sure all the beer in college probably took away the fact that Rome was in Italy.
That's what happens is people go to college and they just want to drink all the time. You're supposed to be studying.
Right.
But it's always the way it's been.
There was a time when Rome was in my brain. Rome was a part of Italy, but at some point the beer had erased those brain cells had been erased by all the drinking and the beer.
Yeah, man, it just disconnects everything. You know what I'm saying?
No, I'd love to go to Italy. Have never been. Is it worth it?
Oh, it's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful. I've also been to England, and we'll just leave England at that.
England was also embarrassing.
England
was
England
never the
was
same after Houston's visit.
no, I went to I also was able to drink in England when I was 17.
Mm.
They didn't care. They didn't card people. So that was so when I said Italy was the first place, actually it was England. I forgot about that. But I kind of behaved myself. I would just walk out and I would get a beer at the bar and they'd serve me and I'd just be like, this is I get to drink a beer. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So I didn't get wasted there, but the food
that's too bad.
was
They missed out on your lack of self-control.
I missed out. I missed out on forgetting a bunch of stuff.
No, no, they missed out. Yeah,
Oh,
you missed
yeah.
out. They missed out too.
But yeah, the food there was that's all I
Yeah,
want to say. Was not
yeah,
very
yeah,
good.
yeah. It's like fish and chips. I mean, it's kind of their highlight.
The food in Italy was amazing.
Was fatissimo or whatever.
Like the pizza they have in Italy is completely different than American pizza. It
Mm,
tastes completely different. That's what pizza is supposed to be. And it tastes, I can't, it's hard to explain if you haven't tasted it, but it doesn't taste like our pizza at all. So when you
yeah,
go
like
somewhere in America and you get real authentic Italian pizza slices somewhere, it's not true. It's BS.
mm,
That was a
yeah.
rant.
Well,
I'm sorry.
no, I mean, Vincenzo takes a lot of offense to that because he works very hard at his pizza and he comes from Italy. Just
I mean, I'm part Italian. I'm part Italian, so it was like kind of going back to my heritage place or whatever.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, so in 2018, I went to Europe. I was in a in a class. I was doing a graduate school for whatever reason. I've never used any of my degrees, but at the end of the program, they sent us to Europe, which was sweet. It was just we were going to visit Berlin, Germany, and Dublin, Ireland. And so they let us go a little early if we wanted to. So I ended up also going to Paris, France. That it was sweet, Uh, I was not drinking, so it wasn't super exciting, so sadly. But and in
you got to
fact,
visit a different country. That's always exciting.
that's always good. No, so my class went to the Guinness factory, first manufacturer, the manufacturing uh, location of Guinness, and I was very envious. And I think to this day, once I started to drink again, that is why stouts and Guinness is probably my favorite beer. Is because I was just so jealous that day that I was not allowed to try the beer.
Guinness is so rich, though. Like I drink a Guinness, or when I used to drink, I would drink a Guinness, and oh, if I drank that in the afternoon, I was just like, ugh. Like especially if it was hot out.
Mm,
But I love Guinness too. I used to love Guinness.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's a very different type of beer.
Yeah,
You drink a Coors Light and it's nothing like Guinness. It's almost like a different type of drink entirely.
absolutely, dog. Absolutely.
Yeah. So I was gonna say about that Germany. Yeah, I got to see the Berlin Wall and the pieces there.
That's
You know, they
amazing.
they they had a lot of they have a lot of spray painting there. And so one thing that was pretty interesting is that some people hire like talented spray painters to spray paint their doors and their walls of their houses, because otherwise it will just get tagged by a piece of crap artist, that's like doing there's two types of spray painting. There's tagging, which is very like one one line. There's not like an art in it. It's just a name or whatever. And then there's actual detailed spray painting art. And so the people would hire those spray painters that could do that, so people wouldn't tag it. Yeah, and so you'll see like this beautiful spray painting art over there, just like whales detailed and all sorts of stuff. It was majestical. Yeah,
Majestical,
got
magical, tactical, spectacle.
yeah, You know, there's all sorts of like World War II stuff too. Like we went to a place in a college where you can look and it's just a window on the ground and you look in and it's a hollowed empty library. And the reason for that is because, you know, in Germany, Nazi Germany, they burned all the books. So to commemorate, you know, and I guess remember that time period, they have this this monument that is that. It's such an interesting thing. Like you're just looking at your feet, you're looking at the ground, and it's a window into a hollowed library. Very interesting.
I have a good friend that we used to work together, and she's been living out in Germany for the past 2 years, and she has invited me out or said, "Hey, come visit me in Germany if you're ever here." Like I'm just going to be there, but I have I have like someone I know living there if I want to visit, and I really want to go there like soon.
Yeah. And they call you up and say, "Are you gonna come?" And you say 9. And they're saying, "Oh, you mean no?" And you're like, "No, I mean 9 times. I'm gonna come over there 9 times." Dad joke.
That was a total dad joke, and I was not prepared for the dadness of it.
I have a dad joke shirt. Look.
Oh no. What does it say?
It says dad joke loading.
Oh my God.
Story of my life. It's a good one is actually loading, but the bad ones just come free form. Spit them out all day.
I always get mad at myself when I tell a dad joke. I'm
Really?
like, no, Houston, you're not that old yet.
Yeah, they're terrible. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just basically you're taking a word and you're taking 2 meanings of it. That's the entire thought of a dad joke.
Yes. Exactly.
Yeah. It's a pun. Like a hot dog in a pun.
Hot dog in a bun pun.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure there's hot dog jokes but this is traveling has ceased.
Next topic. Let's take this topic and all right, let's push that to the hot because we're going off on a whole tangent.
It's going in the fire, yeah.
Because neither of us can focus. I'm trying to focus. We're talking about travel. Yes, correct.
Okay. Another story about traveling. In 2023, my friend who was Indian, I lived in Las Vegas. I knew him at my job in construction. He was getting married. And so he lived in India until he was 18, 19. Then he came over here to work and then he went to school. Then he worked at a construction job in Vegas. Parth Gandhi. Yeah, very common name over there, Gandhi, in fact. But so he invited me to India for his wedding. And I made the stretch and I bought the tickets, incredibly expensive. Like none of the rest of the trip is at all expensive. It's just the ticket. It's like to get there, you have to spend $2,000. To actually be there, you have to spend like, you know, at least $50, you know. But so, you know, I had thought that there was no such thing really for me at least, of a culture shock because, you know, I went to Europe. I was like, man, this is similar. I mean, it's a little different. People speak English. You know, I know how to find the bathroom. It's fine. It's not that much of a culture shock.
I know how to find the bathroom. Very good.
You know, no, you know,
that's all you need to know when you're in another country.
There's gas stations on the corner. There's like a marketplace. I don't know. To me, it wasn't that much of a culture shock, you know. You go to India and it's like you are no longer on the planet Earth. I mean, it really is completely different.
Really different. I'd love to go there.
Yeah, I got in around 2 a.m. Took a while to get through customs, but when I got out to the taxi, you know, and went into the traffic, as we left the airport, you know, they were all just emerging together, like a blob of an amoebus, you know, just like conjugating into this little tiny road. And it was many cars, like hundreds of us just trying to come together to get into this little road to get onto the highway.
Wow, that's
I'm like,
crazy.
why don't they just like tear down this wall and make the road a little bit bigger, you know? But
Absolutely.
you know, and I'm in the taxi, like, oh my gosh, we are gonna die. We're gonna hit somebody. But I was trying to hold it in to myself because he seemed to know what he was doing, you know. And I mean, like, when Parth was saying you're gonna need a taxi the whole time, I'm like, I'll just drive. But thank the good Lord that I did not have to drive there because it is just completely different, you know, with no traffic lights and there's no real rules
They
either.
drive on the other side of the road too. Did they do that in
There's
India? Like in Europe?
yeah, no, yeah, they do. They drive on
On
the
the
right.
other side. And I'm like, why don't they
Yeah,
do it on the right side? Oh,
yeah, it's probably why they're all nicer, you know. It's like it's weirdly that America got all aggressive, but I think it all has to do with that we drive on the left side, but
probably.
who
I think
knows?
that's pretty much it. Yeah.
Yeah. It warps our brains to, you know, but
Brainwashes us.
yeah.
It makes
But
us think
so
this way instead of that way.
yeah, I mean England, they're all kind and polite, you know, same with India. You get over there, they're all nice. It's like, but you have no money, you're completely poor. They're like, it's okay, I have tea. You know, I have this tea. It's very nice. You know, they don't need a whole lot. And I mean, there's a caste system, you know, so and there's billions of people, you know, 1.8 billion is in India
Oh,
right now.
wow.
And I would say 1.7 is like in very much the poverty, you know, life.
The coolest thing about India to me is that they make more movies there than they do anywhere else in the world. Right? Their
Like
movie
like
industry
Bollywood.
there, yeah, Bollywood, all that stuff, they make more movies than any other country combined.
Yeah.
They are the top
Yeah.
movie, they win the movie war. So that's an interesting, I always thought that was interesting. Like they movies are just big there. I guess,
No,
you
I
know.
that was the first real introduction I had to India was Bollywood because Parth would take me in Las Vegas to Bollywood movies.
Mhm.
And have you ever seen those movies?
I haven't seen a whole Bollywood movie, but I heard there was one that came out 2 years ago that was like a big hit all over the world. And I
Mhm.
wanted to see it. I plan on seeing it. I forget what it was called, but it was this action movie. But anyways, I digress. I haven't seen a
So
Bollywood
so
movie.
so I was going to talk about so Parth he's in a higher caste, right? And I didn't really know this, but it's sort of like Eddie Murphy in Coming to America, where I just didn't imagine. I thought Parth was well off there, but
Mm-hmm.
Parth is like a little bit like royalty there. I mean, you know, kind of like a prince, but that's what his family. Sorry, I just spit a little bit, but that's what his family like. You know, treats him as. I mean, and his wedding was just over the top amazing. You know, where he just for example, when he was coming up to the wedding itself, he was riding a chariot of gold and these beautiful white horses. And then us, his guests, were dancing in front of it for hours, dancing in front of this chariot. And they had like just this screen of continuous strobing lights, right? And then humongous, loud, pounding music. And then these servants were lined up with lamps, right? And they were like dragging the electricity, and then they would move a little bit, and then we would have to move with it and the chariot, just this slow progress towards the wedding.
That's
And I was
awesome.
like, oh my gosh, I'm dancing. I don't know if I can keep going. And it's like it's very rude not to dance. So you know, in
So you're
three
just
hours,
forcing yourself to dance. Like,
yeah, 3 hours in, you're like,
I
I'm
can't do
gonna
this
fall
anymore.
over. I'm gonna pass out. I've danced too much, you know, and you want to slip away, but they're like, no. And then like somebody will bring you back. There's like so many people, like, come on and dance a little more. And it's like, oh my gosh, but just real fun. It was a good time. Yeah, and so he's in that higher caste, and his wife, she's from one caste below, which actually is very significant in India. And so normally, even though they were boyfriend and girlfriend or whatever, their families
Girlfriend.
would have to pull them apart, right? They could not get married in a separate cast. But the reason that him and his wife could do it is because her father was a very, very big, successful politician. So it almost elevated her a little bit above the cast, which is like very, very rare. Because, if you're in a cast, no matter what, and especially in the lower castes, you could read and write, you could be the smartest, most brilliant mathematician. It wouldn't matter. You still have to be in that cast. So you still have to make that cast's wages and all that. It doesn't matter how educated, at least that's my understanding, is that you're sort of just born into the cast and you die in that cast. But just from that
Like a
discrepancy
life
of,
sentence.
yeah, yeah, just sort of, yeah, a little bit like the ghettos in America, you can try and try, but very few people actually get out of them. You sort
Mhm.
of live in the ghetto. But uh so all these politicians were at the wedding, and at the time I was Mormon and I was trying my best not to drink. But if you say no to a politician over there with their drinking, it's like very insulting, very rude. And I was a little bit scared for my life. So and they made friends with me because I was this American. I was sort of interesting, and so I was around these like guys that just looked like Indian mafia, but they were super, super high up on the political ranks, and they were just getting wasted one night. And so this guy hands me this bottle, and it's a water bottle, and I'm like, oh, okay. And they're like, it's not water. I'm like, oh. They're like,
It's not
drink.
water.
They're
Oh,
like, drink,
I
drink.
would have been, if that had happened to me, I would have been all, like, okay, I guess I have to do this now. And I'm gonna stop I haven't drank in a while, but yeah, that would be like,
Yeah.
oh no, I have to
Yeah.
drink.
Right, right.
Here we
But it
go
was,
again.
yeah. So yeah, so I ended up getting drunk one night because I didn't want to say no to the politicians. I feared for my life if I didn't drink.
I remember you telling me that story when that happened. So did you get
Yeah, so
wasted?
yeah, I got drunk one of the nights, but the wedding is an entire week of wedding. We have like a ceremony. They just go on ceremony, 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 and it's a very much a different type of a wedding than America.
Right.
That's my story of India.
That's a very, yeah, it was I remember you telling me when that happened. So I'm trying to think, should we talk about places where I was trying to think of places where we've been, but really, aside from our road trip, the only place we ever went to like that was outside of like Delaware, Pennsylvania was Maine, correct?
Yeah, and that was a big, big trip for me because you guys invited me to your summer home in Maine when I
Yeah.
was how old? Sixth, seventh grade?
Yeah, so we were
So
probably like 12 or 13, but though, yeah, that was my stepdad's place. Um, because I go
which
to
is
Maine. My mom had a place like a tiny cabin in the other part of Maine, but this was like on a separate island where we went. So it was an island away from everything. Remember?
right. Islesford.
Islesford, yeah. And Sean and I were plopped there, and there's no like really TV on the island. There's
Mm.
no there's electricity and everything, and there's like a bar, but there's a bar, there was one store on this island. There was no like nobody really had like television there.
Yeah, so
Um,
if you guys want to really be able to think of what it was like, just think of, The Shining. Think of Jack Nicholson's character.
kind of. But so Sean and I really there were other kids on the island, and Sean and I we had bikes, and we would just bike all over this island. And I forget, tell me the story of the, wasn't I pissing you off when we were on the bikes and you like kicked me off my bike or something?
I think it was more just that I was so annoying, and
So
I think
you
in
were
many
annoying
ways,
me.
yeah, in many ways, you just tolerated me as a friend, because you know,
That's not true. I was annoying too. I was just as annoying.
Well, there were times, and I think we alternated sometimes, but yeah, so what I would do as we biked around the island is I would just hit your back pedal,
Oh.
just boom, and then you'd be like, stop it, stop it. I'd be like,
Stop it, Sean.
dude, one time I think I did it so
God.
hard that your bike collapsed over. I was like, I felt bad at that point because you fell over and I think you cut yourself and you were bleeding.
Oh yeah, I remember most of that trip, but I have a hard time remembering that. But now that I really think about it, I do remember falling off the bike because you were doing something annoying. And then what did I do? Just start screaming and yelling like I usually
Yeah, I
do?
think we got in a little fight. Yeah, it was because of that. But I mean, I felt bad because I think you actually legitimately hurt yourself from my stupidity.
What, it wasn't a
And
fist fight though, was it? Or was it like a lame
no, I
fist
think it
fight?
was more just like yeah, I think it might have just been an argument and
Yeah.
just like, yeah, we were just very upset. I was only upset because you were upset.
After we calmed down, like the bike ride was very quiet back to the house,
I think the
probably.
music of that trip, we had Tupac, we had his greatest hits, and then whatever
I bought my
DMX's
first Wu-Tang CD.
Rough Riders.
And then I bought my first Wu-Tang CD.
On that trip,
Yeah, but it was their second one, which is good, but it wasn't their first one, which is like their classic. I got it
right?
because it had a cooler cover. And Limp Bizkit, we had Limp Bizkit at that point, was on that
Yeah,
trip.
that's true. Yeah,
So that's what
but
I would
Rough
listen to back then.
and yeah, but remember the Rough Riders album came out. It
Yeah,
was
the
like
DMX. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and Eve sit or Eve's or no
No,
Eve,
Eve. Eve.
yeah, Eve,
Eve.
yeah.
Who else was on there? The Locks. Jay-Z was on one of the songs.
Mm.
I remember that CD. I remember.
So so there were two girls in the house right next to Houston's, and his house was amazing, right? So his stepfather's house, it had, you walk out, there was a porch that kind of encircled the house, and
Mhm.
right next to, if you walked up the porch, there was a beautiful view of the ocean, or like, the sea, right?
Yeah, and it was tucked away like really like, it was really
Yeah,
like in the woods too. Like
right,
you could
right.
walk to the left and be in the woods for like a mile and then walk this way and be right back into town. Like it was kind of a really cool, but mosquito wise, it sucked out there and there was no TV
But
anywhere.
there was a little hut that next to his house that we kind of claimed,
There was a
Houston and I.
clubhouse in the back, like our own
Yeah,
separate clubhouse. And Sean and I
it
just
was. It
hung
had
out in there.
two floors, right? One floor, and then
Mhm.
a little
Like an
up. You could
attic
go.
room or whatever. It was like a clubhouse.
But so a big story I thought was really funny, and I think you probably agree, is the ending of the trip. So we pack up, we get our suitcases all ready, we take them to the dock, and we're gonna get in the boat. Peter, his stepdad, who's was a nice sort of gentle, lazy guy in his retirement,
He
just
wasn't
asked
retired
us.
yet, but yeah,
Oh, he was.
he was on vacation. He was pretty, yeah, relaxed and laid back.
He was just asking us to get the suitcases into the boat. Well, we didn't do any research. We just saw a boat, put the suitcases in the
Yeah.
boat.
So when you were on
We
this
had
island in Maine, Islesford, you had to take a ferry out to the mainland so you could get back on the road for the road trip. And Peter
mm,
asked us to like take the bags and leave them on the deck. He didn't tell us to put them on the boat. And
okay.
so they left us on that dock with the luggage, and the boat came up. And for some reason, we thought, oh, the boat's here. We better get the all the suitcases on the boat. And the guy there was like, are you guys putting this stuff in the boat? And we said yes. And
Yeah,
Peter had left. He was coming back. He didn't want us to put the stuff on that boat. It was the wrong boat. It was not the boat we were taking.
yeah. And so we watch as the boat sails away, and so does Peter. Peter gets back. He's like, "Where's the luggage?" And we're like, "Oh, it's right there." And we're like pointing to we're pointing to a boat
Return to a
that's
boat that's leaving the dock.
He's all ticked.
He was
So
pissed.
funny.
He was
Yeah,
pissed.
you gotta be careful in Maine because it's not so much the lobster consumption, but it's the butter of the lobster consumption that people have to watch for. If you if you have heart problems, don't just go to Maine because the lobster's good, but then they swarm like they serve it with like hot butter, and it's like, oh,
And it's the best place to ever, if you haven't had lobster in Maine, you got to go to Maine. Okay. You can't go to another state and say you've had Maine lobster. You got to go to the source. You know what I'm saying? You got to go to the source of the lobster. And the source of the lobster is Maine. That's where the good uncut lobster is. You know what I mean? It's pure
yeah,
lobster.
yeah,
Pure. And that is, so if you've had a lobster in Maine, like I assume you had one up there, right?
yeah. I did. I think I was
Yes.
by myself too. You're like, I don't want
That's real
lobster,
lobster.
so I went to the dock right by that restaurant by the dock, and I had my own like lobster because you weren't gonna have it with me.
Yeah, because I was a picky eater growing up, and I would not touch. I didn't try lobster till probably the year after that, because
Right,
I practically went to Maine every summer to a
right.
different part of Maine. But like I took me till I was like 13 or 14 before I finally tried lobster, and absolutely loved it. That pure uncut Maine lobster. Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah. What are you doing down there? I feel like I'm about to get like
I'm
you're gonna get a
vaping.
bus. Oh, moment of silence.
I don't like to do it on camera
Oh, no worries.
because
Yeah,
it's bad or
you
something.
you vape, I zin. I've actually been watching our old podcast. Like, oh, I really should not be zinning because like you can see me like messing with it. But yeah. So, or I could
For the rest of the
zin.
podcast, I'm just going to be going off camera every 3 seconds.
And I'm sure everybody else that vapes, when they see you going off camera, they will also vape.
Yes,
But
exactly. That's like everyone's cue that's watching this. Oh, time to vape. Vaping is bad. Don't do it.
yeah, zinning is bad.
Zinning is just as bad. Don't do it.
So my earliest memory of world travel was Switzerland, right? So I go when I'm like 7 to Switzerland because my grandfather is just insanely rich. He was, but a caveat of that was he was also a prick to like 1,000 degrees. And so, yeah, if
Why was he such a prick?
it was just his way, he was just mean. He didn't give
Okay.
a crap about uh me, and I would say that probably stood true to other members of his family. I think that was the biggest drawback. When I was able to make my own decisions around like, well, like at least for this, maybe we'll make that my own decision. I just said I don't really want to be around pop.
Yeah.
And so, but before that, Switzerland. So we go over, and this is very early, so I don't have a lot of memories, but I have two memories, distinct stories that I still remember. One is just when uh when we were on the Alps, right, where you're skiing, they have these little tees. So in America, you get on a lift, and it like actually pulls you up. It's sort of scary. It's like, at least for a kid, it's really fast, sweeps you up and takes you up the mountain. Well, with Europe, they were like, we'll just keep the tees. I think it's like a sort of an archaic method, but it's just a little bar. You grab on it and you use your skis, and you kind of go up the mountain that way, just on your skis. Yeah, these lifts are really, you know, these lifts are actually the tees take you up for a long way. You got to be on there for something like 10-15 minutes sometimes, to get to the top.
Yeah, I always
Well,
hated ski lifts. I never really liked skiing, to be honest with you. I'm not going to go on a whole rant here, but I hated sitting in the ski lifts because I was afraid of heights. And I would always be with another kid who'd always start shaking the thing and being like,
right.
look, I'm shaking it. And that I always hated ski lifts. I'm sorry, that was a tangent. Please keep going.
So about halfway up, my sister's just like, I can't do it. falls off the tee. So we're all like, well, we all have to stop the tee, right? We can't leave her. So we all have to get off the tee, like, which is just letting go,
Mhm.
And then we're somewhere in the Alps halfway up. And she also wasn't comfortable going down that slope.
Mhm.
And so my parents and her have to take off the skis and just sort of edge down it. But I felt fine and Pop felt fine. So we go down together. We hit a bar in the middle of the Alps, and
Ooh.
Pop is like, I don't want to take this kid around. Hey, you stay here, wait for your folks. That was all he said, real quick, skis off. Right. And so I'm sitting there at the bar, like, what do I guess I'll wait here. Hello.
Oh
And
man.
time goes by, probably a good probably wasn't that long. Kids have a weird perception of time but yeah, I wonder how long it actually was, but it felt like forever to me. And I'm
Mhm.
starting to like cry. Mom, Dad, you know,
Wow,
I'm like
that's a
crying.
bummer. That's really a bummer.
So these three high school girls come, hey, where's your mom and dad? I'm like, I don't know. So they take me up the slope so to kind of like look for them,
Uh-huh.
which made me feel a lot better. I thought, and at some point, I thought it was super cool. They end up meeting up with all these teenage kids like in this big huddle, and I'm looking at them like, oh, I am now cool. I'm cool now, you know. So anyway, they come out of
Because
the
they were
huddle.
trying to help you because you were stuck somewhere crying.
Yeah,
Then they
yeah,
made you a cool kid.
yeah. I thought it was. I think it's yeah. So they ski down, find my folks, and make everything right. And it's like Dunkashun to those girls. I hope they see this, and so they can hear me say Dunkashun.
I'm sure they'll randomly stumble upon this podcast.
Yeah, yeah. When I was 17, my aunt and uncle, I was living with them. They took me on a cruise ship to the Bahamas, right? Because it was like my graduation gift, and I was allowed to take a friend. I took a friend from high school. His name was Terry, and yeah, immediately when we stepped on that cruise, it was like, how do we get with girls? How do we find girls to talk to? We were lower class. Some girls were like above talking to us, on that cruise. They just wanted to, and I remember, they were getting with guys, just not us. I was very upset by that. It's like, what the heck? You know? Yeah, but
Yeah.
I was thin and pale, and I mean that probably was a setback, but that was a big that was the whole cruise. But I mean the scenery was great, but who gives a crap when you're just trying to get, hook up with some girls?
I've never been on a cruise before. Never been on
Oh,
one.
that will be remedied, my friend.
Yeah, because Sean has been trying to get me to do a cruise. What you want to do it this summer, right?
Yeah, why not?
Okay. And
Yeah.
I'm all down for it. I could easily get
Yeah.
like a week off of work and do that. I've never been on a cruise ship, and we'll get it'll be like the sequel to our road trip movie. It'll be the
The star
cruise
the
version.
stars are amazing. You look up and because there's not the light pollution, it's
Yes.
just so bright and just so many.
And yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun to go on a cruise. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, where would you want to go?
I don't know, in the Caribbean somewhere. Like we'd leave from wherever, like
Yeah,
wasn't that
Miami.
yeah, Miami or something. Um, and yeah, we could just start from there. I don't know anything about how cruises work.
So you and Dave went across the country once. Tell us about that. What are some stories?
I was in New Mexico. I lived in New Mexico for 2 years. I was like 23 or something. I was helping out
Hmm.
my dad, and then I decided I didn't want to live there anymore. So Dave, my buddy Dave, flew out to New Mexico to take my car back, and we drove from New Mexico all the way to Delaware, and it took 5 days. And I also made a video about that road trip. I don't know if you've ever seen it. It's kind of stupid, but um, we basically went through the middle of the country, and all we saw for like 5 days after a while, after we drove through the desert, Like we drove through Texas, my car broke down, and there were just fields of cows everywhere. And I got so tired of looking at fields of cows, just it was excruciating. But I
You should
actually
have
had
gone up to some. You should have gone up to some of their manure and seen if there was any mushrooms around.
Yes, we should have gone digging in the cow poop to look for mushrooms. And possibly, since I don't know anything about, didn't know anything back then about that, I would have just taken any random like poisonous mushrooms. But anyways, I digest. So yeah, and I remember I was drinking at the point during that road trip, and when we hit Texas, we've been driving for like 10 hours. We hit this part of Texas, and we finally find a hotel. It's 5 o'clock, and I want to get some beer. And we get out, book the hotel room, and go down to the lobby, and they're like, "This is a dry area. There's no alcohol here anywhere." And so I couldn't drink that night because it was like a 40-minute drive to like the next non-dry area. And I'd never heard of that before. I was like, "What do you mean there's no booze here? What is a dry area?" So I
And
didn't
that's when
drink that
Houston
night.
becomes, yeah.
That's when I
That's when
got
Houston
cranky.
becomes, yeah, the Incredible Hulk.
You wouldn't like me when I'm not drunk.
And you wouldn't like me when I'm drunk either. So
Yeah, you're just not gonna like me at all, either way, tonight. So, but other than that, I had a lot of fun, but I think by the end, Dave wanted to kill me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think he was like, he wanted to strangle me because I was probably being super annoying back then. But it was fun. I had a good time.
Well, folks, we hope you have liked podcast episode number 6. Stay tuned for our next one. Hope you enjoyed the Super Bowl. And if you're going to watch it, I am certainly not, but
I don't know what I'm doing tonight, but peace out. Let's hope the Super Bowl, let's hope somebody wins the Super Bowl, and let's hope somebody scores a touchdown in the game tonight.
yeah. Peace out, ladies and gentlemen. Podcast episode 7 coming at you next week. Peace.
Boom, boom.